and I'm your host with the mostest, Uchido Ai. So, if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. Um, I am doing the Bible in 1 year because I want to get to know God for myself and I want to share that journey with an audience online. I've done this before, but I didn't really document it. This time around, I wanted to document it. And so I follow a scripted Bible guide. This Bible guide. It's you can find it in any family worship center, church, anywhere in the world that you go to. And every day we look at an Old Testament, a New Testament, a Psalm, and a Proverb. So why am I doing this? Because I want to get to know God for myself some more. I want to check out the stories, lots and lots of interpretations out there. Why don't I go see for myself and see what it says and see what it says? And then take what I'm going to take, test the theories and the principles that are written there, and even discard the things that are not needed. Yes, I do believe that there are things, and I think I would make it a point to really say, you see this particular one, I've discarded it. So yes, I want to discard what I believe is not needed, and I just want to know the stories and see how they can apply to my life today. Okay? And then also to encourage anyone who is out there to go read the Bible for themselves. You are free to disagree with me, which is okay, by the way. You go check it out for yourself. That said, welcome to day 171. So, if you've been following me for any length of time, the book of Kings is so funny because it laces a lot of politics, not just personal lives. It puts a lot of politicking around the Bible stories, and I'll share my thoughts as we go along. So we're looking at 2 Kings, the last book in 2 Kings, chapter 22, verses 1 to 53. We're going to be looking at Acts 13. We're rounding up Acts 13. We're looking at Psalm 138, and then Proverbs chapter 17, verses 17 and 18. So we'll do this in good time. So hang in there. All right, so 3 years had passed without war between Syria and Israel. Do you remember what happened yesterday? The Ben-Hadad, the guy who was bragging and got beaten like fair and square. Yeah. Anyway, so after they had their treaty, no war. So one day, King Jehoshaphat. So if you go further, if you step back a bit, Israel used to be one country, then they divided, and now they have 2 kings. They have the king of Judah, and then they have Israel. So the king of Heloniah, the king of Judah visits. Hi. The king of Judah visits the king of Israel, Ahab. You know Ahab, that silly king that makes all the mistakes. Alright, so the king of Judah visits Ahab, and then they're chatting. And Ahab is telling him, do you know that town, Ramoth in Gilead? Do you know that it belongs to Israel? You know we need to take you back from Syria. You know that, right? So Jehoshaphat, which is the king of Israel, says, yes, please subscribe to my channel. And please turn on the notification button. Yes. So just follow the story. Okay? Or go back a bit and catch up and see how we do things here. You're welcome anyway. Alright, so Jehoshaphat clearly has a relationship with God. So Jehoshaphat says, you know what, I will support you whatever you do. My army is your army, my people are your people, we are one, So you wanna go? We go. But just go make sure you ask a prophet what God thinks about this. So Ahab's like, all right. They go and call prophets. They are both sitting down on their thrones, sitting down in their royal robes. They bring all these multiple prophets and they start asking questions. So we want to go and pick a fight with Ramoth in Syria. What do you guys say to this? We want to go. Are we going to be successful? All the prophets are like, yeah, you're going to be successful. This one says his own, that one says his own. And Jehoshaphat is still feeling somewhat concerned. It's like, is there no other person here that like preaches? Like, isn't there any man of God, like real man of God? Not this, I don't know what to say. So he says, there's one guy, I don't like him, I hate him because he never says anything good, always saying evil stuff. Jehoshaphat's like, let's just hear what he says. So they go and call a guy called Micaiah. Do you remember that yesterday, Elijah had said was it yesterday or the day before? Elijah had said he was the only one, there was nobody as well. This is Micaiah. They're introducing us to other people who serve the living God and not idols. right? So they can call the guy called Micaiah. And then they're telling Micaiah on the way that as he's coming that, look, the king is asking if it's okay to go to war. Just tell him it's okay and let us move past this, Don't go and say anything different too. Micaiah is like, I'm just going to say what God asked me to say. They're like, we're telling you now. He's not in a good mood. Just you go and tell him it's okay. All the other prophets have said, you don't want to stand out. So Micaiah goes there. So the king, him and Ahab and Jehoshaphat are sitting down looking at Micaiah. And they're like, so are we supposed to go to war? Micaiah is like, yeah. Ahab's like, Micaiah, have I not told you never to lie to me? Now tell me the truth. I want to go to war. Should I go? Will I win? So Micaiah says, you will not win. I already see you, people running on the field. And I heard a voice say, everybody should run. There's no leader for them. The leader is gone. And so immediately Ahab says, you see what I'm saying? He tells Jehoshaphat, you see this guy? That's what I'm telling you. He never says anything nice. He always says stuff, So Jehoshaphat is like, Micaiah is like, all right, you know what? Let me just be honest with you. Look, this is not good. Okay, I was in a vision. Now this is me. So I like to lace the stories with Nigerian humor. So pardon me if I put a little bit of humor. I hope you follow me and understand. I think you will. Communication is universal. So he says, okay. So I see. So let me go to my notes so I don't miss anything. He says, okay. So I'll tell you what I saw. I heard God sitting down somewhere declaring, I want to persuade Ahab. Ahab, that naughty king, I want to persuade him to go and fall at Ramoth. I want to pick a fight with me. Who can give me an idea? Then a spirit. They don't tell us whether it's a good or bad spirit, but they say a spirit comes before God and tells God that I can do this for you. So God says, how are you going to convince Ahab to go to Ramoth and die? So Ahab says, the spirit says, I'm going to put lying spirit in the mouth of his prophets. I'm going to make his prophets tell him lies. And then they will lie to him, and he would follow their lies, and then he will go there. So God is like, all right, have your way. This sounds so spooky, so spooky. But that's what that Micaiah prophet says. So as he's saying this thing, he says, Micaiah says to him, if you go, God has declared disaster on you. Next thing, so there's this guy that was there who was also there. His name is let me see. His name is Zedekiah, Mr. Zedekiah Shanai. He has like horn. Maybe he wore a hat with horns or something. Basically like Throne and Game of Thrones type of outfits. So the lying prophets were telling him, even with your horns, your horns are going to like destroy the city and stuff. You're just basically just patronizing them. So that Zedekiah guy, he gets up when Micaiah tells the king that if you go, you're gonna see disaster, and he slaps the prophet. And the prophet is like, you will see the day where you will see me on the day you are going to be running to hide. You will see me that day, and you remember this thing I'm telling you. So Ahab now ordered, go lock this guy up. Like, I'm so upset. Look at what he prophesied. Go lock him up. So the thing about Ahab is like, he was a very foolish king. You've seen a lot of things that have proven that God is God and the prophets of Baal are fake. And then you say someone should tell you the truth. You invite him to tell you the truth. He tells you the truth, and then you get upset. And I believe that many people are like this, But because they are not in positions of authority over many people, their folly is insane. So Ahab says, go lock him up. Go lock him up and make sure you deal with him. Give him the bread of affliction until I return peacefully. So the Micaiah says, well, you can lock me up. I doubt if you will return peacefully. I doubt if you return peacefully. And then they prepared to go to war. The king of Syria, hearing that a war had started, had heard that, So maybe it was Ben-Hadad, I don't know, but they didn't mention his name here. They said the king of Syria had heard that Israel was now coming to pick a fight with him over Ramoth. So he assigns 32 chariots. Their work was to find and eliminate Ahab alone. So nobody, just look for him. So Ahab decided to disguise. So he didn't dress like a king. Normally, I think when they went to war in those days, they dressed up looking like the king. They stood somewhere. If somebody wanted to assassinate them, they'd be so easy to kill, you know. So Jehoshaphat and Ahab went to this war, and Jehoshaphat dressed like a king, but Ahab did not. So they looked for him and they saw Jehoshaphat. They ran after Jehoshaphat. They were about to kill him when they ripped off. Oh, it's not Ahab. And so they turn around and leave Jehoshaphat alone. Ahab thinks he has dodged the 32 charioteers, maybe like snipers from the king of Syrian army. He thinks he has dodged them because he's disguised as a normal person at war. But a stray arrow bounces off something and comes and pierces him right inside his chariot, saying all the things that God said will happen were happening. And he's there, he bleeds out in the chariot and he dies. And then they take the chariot to the pool at Samaria, and they are washing the chariot of the king's blood. And dogs, litter around the water of the chariot, and they are licking it, and that fulfilled the prophecy that he was told way back then when he killed Mr. Naboth. Do you remember Mr. Naboth? One guy that he land grabbed his vineyard. Yes, he said, you are going to die and animals are going to lick your blood. And that was what played out. So the king passed on, King Ahab died. And when they were washing the chariot, animals were there licking it, and that fulfilled that prophecy just like it was said years ago. So it's written, every time a king dies in the Bible, they try to recount some of the things, the major things that he did. So they said he built ivory cities, and the remaining things are written in the book of Kings. In the book of Kings. And his son Ahaziah becomes king. Jehoshaphat, now just backing up a bit, Jehoshaphat, who is the second king, the king of Israel, of Judah, became king 4 years into King Ahab's reign. And he was 35 years old when he became king. He reigned for 35 years. Jehoshaphat pleased God in the things that he did. His mother was called Azubah Shilbi, and he followed in his father's ways. Asa was his father. He did what pleased God. He made peace with Israel. He didn't, because there was a time when Judah and Israel were not on speaking terms. Jehoshaphat was the one who made peace with Israel. He banished perverse people from people like perverse people that served in his father's time, people that worship idols and everything. He punished them in that time, and but he didn't quite get rid of the shrines that existed in Judah at the time. At the time, if you recall, when Solomon became king, he was going to shrines, even though he was following God and still, philandering with all these other lesser gods. Okay, so he didn't quite get rid of the shrine. However, Edom, their cousin, do you remember their cousin? So Edom are the descendants of Esau, and Israel and Judah are the descendants of Jacob. So their cousin Edom had a deputy king installed by them, okay, and not a real king, like a stooge. Anyway, Jehoshaphat built merchant ships, possibly had a big eye for commerce. He built merchant ships to go and collect gold from Ophir, but the ship never sailed because they were wrecked at a place called Ezion Geber. They were wrecked at a place called Ezion Geber. Now Ahaziah, Ahab's son, became king in his stead, and reigned for just 2 years. He was 18 in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat. So Ahaziah became king when Jehoshaphat had been king in Judah for 18 years, and he was king for only 2 years, behaving as evil as his parents, his father Ahab and his mother Jezebel, behaving so badly and provoking God. So that ends our Old Testament reading today. That was a long one. Thank you all for hanging in there. That was a long one. So like I told you, the structured guide we follow, we look at an Old Testament, a New Testament, a Psalm, and a Proverb. And I leave the scriptures that we read in the description box every single day. So the book of Acts 13, you know, the church in Antioch had become a big deal. Now the whole Jesus story was no longer just a Jewish thing. It had now been accepted by people referred to as Gentile. That is, all the other people who were not Jews. Gentiles were mostly Greek people. Anyway, so um, Paul spoke up. This is where the story starts. Chapters 13, 16 to 41. Paul spoke up and says, "Listen, people, God chose our fathers and exalted them when they were in Egypt. He brought them out with a mighty hand with an uplifted arm, and he left them in the wilderness for 40 years, trying to cleanse them, you know. And when the time came for them to enter the promised land, he took the land that he had promised Abraham many, many years ago. He had promised Abraham many years ago. 7 nations collapsed it and distributed it among the Israelites. And he gave them judges for 450 years until a prophet named Samuel came around. Samuel was the child of Hannah, that lady who didn't have a child for a while. Yes. When she now had her son, she took him back to the temple and he grew up in the temple. Do you remember? All right. So until Samuel was born. And then while Samuel was prophet, he gave us kings because you guys requested for kings. So this is Saul now. Paul now. He's now being referred to as Paul. From chapters 13, he stops being called Saul and starts becoming Paul, you know. And so Paul is talking to the Israelites who are challenging them, who are the Israelites who are challenging them. So he's saying that so when Samuel came, Samuel gave us kings. He gave us Saul of Kish from the tribe of Benjamin. And he also gave us a man called David, another man called David who loved God, who was a man after God's heart. It is from this David's seed that God raised a savior known as Jesus. And John, Jesus' cousin, began to preach about Jesus, introducing Jesus, telling everybody that, look, he's not Jesus, he's the one supposed to introduce Jesus to the world, you know, and telling people that he was not the one. Then he goes on to say, look, my people, Abraham's descendants, those who fear God, salvation has been sent. To those who fear God, salvation has been sent in the person of Jesus. Our rulers didn't know him, they didn't recognize Jesus. So they ganged up along with Pontius Pilate and persuaded Pontius Pilate to kill him, even though they knew he did not commit any wrong. But you see that Jesus, God raised him up from the dead. God raised him up from the dead, and many people saw him after he resurrected. And we declare that that promise that was made to the fathers back in the time when David was king, that promise has been fulfilled in this man called Jesus. So this is Saul now explaining to people who were questioning them about this whole Jesus thing. You remember they just started calling them Christians just 2 days ago. They just started calling them Christians. So all this while they didn't even have a name for them. They were just like rebellious people who didn't want to be Jews anymore and all of that stuff. Now they even have Romans and Greeks aligning with them. This was so offensive to the Jews. This was so offensive to the Jews. So Paul continued to back it up. He backed it up with scriptures in the Psalms, saying, look here where David wrote this is where David wrote that. You know, David served God's will in his generation and died, but he saw corruption because his body died and he left. But you see this Jesus, he didn't see corruption because God raised him from the dead. Know this for sure, that this Jesus, for those who believe, he justifies those who couldn't be justified by the law of Moses. Now this law of Moses, right, was a law set for Moses for the Jews. Now Paul is telling them that if you couldn't be justified by the law of Moses, you can't be justified by the law of Jesus. Jesus came to forgive your sins and bring you back to himself, so you can be justified by the law of Jesus. Therefore, let what was spoken of not come upon you. And what was spoken? Behold, you despisers, marvel and perish, for I walk in your days a walk which you won't believe even if it were declared to you. So that's a psalm. So I think it was written that a time will come when God will declare some things that some people will be unable to believe it. And so let that kind of unbelief not be your portion. That's basically what Paul was saying. So he explained all of that to the Jews, and there was a lot of acceptance for what Paul was doing. So we'll see what happens tomorrow and how they responded to Paul. All right. So quickly, we're just going to read some, and we just have about 10 verses to read. I just read out the Psalms and the Proverbs. I don't teach. I don't share the stories. I don't dramatize. I just read them. All right. So Proverbs 17, verses 17 and 18. Verses 17 and 18. A friend loves at all times, and a brother. I read this yesterday. A brother is born for adversity. Anyway, 18. A man lacking in judgment strikes hands in pledge and puts up security for his neighbor. I think I read this yesterday. I'm not sure. Maybe I mixed up the. Okay. I think I overread yesterday into today's version. All right. So let's read Psalm 138, and then we'll be done for today. And I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for saying something. So if you're interested, say something in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel and let me know if you're following the stories as I'm sharing them. You could go check out the scriptures that I've written in the description box below, and let me have your thoughts in the comment section. Psalm 138. I will praise you, O Lord, with all my heart. Before the gods, I will sing your praise. I will bow down towards your holy temple, and I will praise your name for your love and your faithfulness. For you have exalted above all things your name and your word. And when I called you, you answered me. You made me bold and stout-hearted. May all the kings of the earth praise you, O Lord, when they hear of the words of your mouth. May they sing of the ways of the Lord, for the glory of the Lord is great. Though the Lord is on high, he looks upon the lowly, but the proud he knows from afar. Though I walk in the midst of trouble, you preserve my life. You stretch out your hand against the anger of my foes. With your right hand you save me. The Lord will fulfill his purpose for me. Your love, O Lord, endures forever. Do not abandon the works of your hands. Okay, so that's it for today. I hope you join me tomorrow to see the next episode. We'll be looking at day 172. So I'll see you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and leave something in the comments below. Share this with anyone you think is curious about the Bible, or wants something to read, or wants to hear stories about the Bible. All right.